In the past, Trump has claimed that he can do whatever he wants under Article 2 of the Constitution, and the Republican justices, three of whom were appointed by him, agree with that statement, with a minor exception that is mostly swallowed by the sweeping immunity from criminal prosecution standard created by the Republican justices in a decision earlier today that was made out of whole cloth. The historian author Schlesinger published a book in 1973, which I read at the time, titled The Imperial Presidency, that documented the growing powers of the president since the nation's founding. Since that book was originally published, the powers of the president have grown exponentially, and as of today, include a get-out-of-jail-free card for criminal acts committed while president, even when the charges are brought after the term ends. As expected, the Republican justices gave a green light for Trump to commit crimes during his second term, and I believe it's more likely than not that he will win a second term in November. But also for people who are conservative, and that excludes the Republican Supreme Court justices and almost all Republicans as far as I'm concerned. That kind of rule applies to future presidents as well as Trump. The Republican justices created an immunity for an ex-president from criminal prosecution for an act or acts which within his official duties as president. Trump was claiming that he was performing an official duty when he sent an angry and armed mob to the Capitol to disrupt the joint session of Congress. Arguably, almost any act that the president does can be claimed to be an official act. I mean, I was just trying to think of something that might not be an official act, and I was having trouble thinking what would, without question, be considered a private act. The Republican justices had already immunized Trump's conduct for sending the mob to the Capitol to disrupt the official proceeding in their decision earlier in the Fisher case, which I discussed in a prior video that I will link in the More section below. That legerdemain that they did in Fisher was simply to delete about half of the statute dealing with obstruction of an official proceeding. Most of Trump's conduct in the insurrection case has now been immunized from criminal prosecutions by the Republican justices on the Supreme Court. What remains of that case could not conceivably be tried before the election. If Trump wins, then the special prosecutor will be fired and the case dismissed, in effect, giving Trump permanent immunity from federal criminal prosecutions that are now pending against him. And that would primarily be the documents case that Eileen Cannon will never allow to be tried before the election. And that case will be dismissed if Trump wins. As a practical matter, given the scope of the presidential powers now, the official duty is so broad as to effectively immunize a vast array of criminal acts that a president can now commit without being concerned about being charged with a crime in a way that simply incentivizes the president to commit crimes. Since I now expect Trump to win a second term, the Republican justices have unleashed him to do whatever he wants. In effect, the president has become a king, above the law and unaccountable to it, except in very limited exceptions. And those immunities from criminal prosecution apply even after leaving office. The presidential constitutional duty, and this is actually in the Constitution, to take care that the laws are faithfully executed, has in fact been deleted from the Constitution by the Republican justices through the creation by them of this presidential immunity from criminal prosecution. They have now shown their true colors. If there was any doubt previously, there is none now. Republicans will never recognize the facts that have justified the federal and state criminal prosecution against Trump, nor will they ever accept evidence that he has committed criminal acts during his second term, nor will Republican senators ever vote in sufficient numbers to impeach Trump, no matter how many crimes he commits. The Republican justices have sanctioned criminal conduct by a president who now has no reason to fear being held to account. So that is where we are and will stay for many decades to come. Elections do matter. The Republicans recognized that many decades ago, and that's how we got to where we are now. A Trump victory will allow him to replace Alito and Thomas with much younger versions of those two justices, and Gorsuch, Barrett, and Kavanaugh are just versions of Alito and Thomas. There's really no meaningful difference in any of them. That will likely extend the current direction of the court past 2050. So you're either in favor of that direction or you're not. Voters can make their own decision. I'm just laying out the end result of what has already happened and will continue to happen, no matter no matter if you're opposed to it or not. While Supreme Court justices cannot be impeached by the House and convicted in the Senate because of a mere disagreement about a hot button issue like abortion or gay marriage and other similar type issues, where the voting population has strong opinions about whether they're in favor or not on those kind of issues, the creation of a presidential immunity for criminal acts, given the powers of the imperial president already, may prove to be grounds for impeaching all 6 Republican justices for violating their oath of office and greenlighting criminal acts by the president. That is too much to tolerate in a democracy. It really will depend in part on whether the Democrats can ever achieve 67 votes again, and also the kind of criminal acts that Trump may commit in the second term, the seriousness of them, and so on. Of course, the Democrats will need 67 votes, and they're nowhere close to that now in the Senate. But it may become possible at some point during Trump's second term that they can achieve that number, depending on how many crimes he commits and the seriousness of those crimes. If there are really serious stuff and the evidentiary grounds for them are very strong, then I would just say a voice vote in the House on impeachment and a voice vote in the Senate on removing the 6 Republican justices would be all that would be required at that time.